The drop ship rattled violently as it tore through the alien atmosphere, turbulence hammering against its hull. Inside, Captain Jake Mercer gripped his harness and glanced at his team. 5 men, all hardened veterans, each with their own scars and demons, were strapped in around him. The mission was clear: recover the kidnapped American girl and eliminate any threats in their way. 3 minutes to drop, the pilot barked through the comms, his voice crackling over the roar of the engines. Sergeant Kyle Briggs, demolitions expert, adjusted the straps on his chest rig and muttered, "Kidnapping a 6-year-old? These alien freaks have no idea what kind of hell they just invited." Lieutenant David Cross, their sniper, exhaled slowly. "No doubt. But let's not assume we have the upper hand. Intel says these Zythar bastards own this rock. We go in quiet. We get the girl. We get out." Frank Ox Hudson, the heavy gunner, chuckled, checking his massive rotary cannon. "Quiet? Yeah, sure. But if things go loud, I'll make sure they never hear anything again." Mason Gadget Tate, the tech specialist, tapped furiously on his wrist display, scanning their descent. Landing zones unstable. Volcanic activity everywhere. Oxygen's thin but breathable. We're walking into a furnace. Mercer nodded, eyes narrowing. "Then we don't waste time. Once we land, we move fast." The ship lurched as it cut through the last layer of the atmosphere. Below them, the world unfolded in shades of fire and ruin. Rivers of molten rock snaked through jagged landscapes of obsidian, sending columns of heat into the air. The sky was a sickly orange, choked with swirling ash. It looked like hell had carved out a second home here. "Landing now," the pilot called. The moment the ramp dropped, the heat slammed into them like a physical force. Their boots hit the blackened ground, weapons raised. Above them, the drop ship lifted off, circling back to maintain a safe distance. "Eyes up," Mercer ordered, scanning the terrain. "Beacons 50 yards northeast. Move." They advanced in a tight formation, boots crunching against the scorched rock. The distress signal had been faint, barely enough to cut through the interference of the planet's volatile atmosphere. But it had been enough. Then the silence shattered. From the ridges above, a screeching howl echoed, followed by the thunderous beat of enormous wings. The team snapped their rifles up just as the creatures descended. They weren't just dragons. They were monsters. Each was the size of a dropship, scales glistening like molten metal. Their eyes burned red, and their fanged maws dripped with something viscous and steaming. The largest among them landed heavily, its talons digging into the rock, sending cracks racing through the ground. And on a spire of stone behind them, standing amidst the beasts, was something worse. A towering alien clad in obsidian armor, jagged and brutal. His reptilian features were crowned with bone-like spines. His slit pupils locked onto the humans below. He held a staff crackling with energy, his clawed fingers tightening around its hilt. "Zarath," Mercer murmured, "the warlord of the Zythar Dominion, the one who had taken the girl." Zarath raised a clawed hand, and the dragon snarled in response. A command without words. A death sentence. "Scatter!" Mercer shouted. The first blast of fire erupted from the dragon's throat, washing over the spot they had stood moments before. The team rolled away, breaking formation as the creatures attacked. Briggs lobbed a grenade, but the explosion barely scratched the dragon's thick hide. Cross fired his rifle, a perfect shot between the eyes of one of the beasts, but the round ricocheted harmlessly. "Shit," Cross growled. "Armor's too thick." "Then we aim for something softer," Mercer snapped. "Eyes, throat, joints, make it count." Ox let loose a barrage of gunfire, the roar of his weapon nearly drowning out the screams of the beasts. One dragon flinched, its wing torn by the onslaught, but it recovered fast, lashing out with a tail the size of a tree trunk. Ox barely dove aside in time. Tate was already working, his fingers flying over his wrist display. Their movements, he's controlling them. Some kind of biofrequency. Mercer gritted his teeth. "Then break the damn signal." "Working on it." Another wave of fire seared across the battlefield, forcing the team to take cover behind jagged rocks. The heat was unbearable. The air itself felt like it was trying to set them ablaze. Then came the sound none of them wanted to hear. A child's scream. Mercer's head snapped up. On the ridge, partially hidden behind Zaratha's towering form, was the girl. Blonde, dirty, terrified. Emma Carter. She was alive. For now. Zarath turned his gaze toward her, then back to Mercer. His jagged teeth curled into something that might have been a smile. He raised his staff again, and the dragons coiled, ready to finish the job. Mercer made a decision. Cover fire, he barked. Briggs, smoke out the ridge. Tate, shut down that signal. Cross, find me an opening. The team moved in sync, muscle memory taking over. Grenades exploded in plumes of thick, choking smoke, blinding the enemy for just a moment. It was all Mercer needed. He ran, ducking low, weaving between bursts of fire, ignoring the heat tearing at his skin. He reached the base of the ridge, just as a dragon's tail slammed down where he had been a second before. His knife flashed, slicing into the softer flesh beneath its massive limb. The creature shrieked, recoiling. Above him, Zarath snarled, realizing the human had made it too close. Too late, asshole, Mercer muttered. With a final push, he reached the top. The girl shrank away, eyes wide with fear. Emma, he said, voice firm but calm. I'm here to take you home. She hesitated, then slowly reached for his outstretched hand. And then Zarath roared. The warlord lunged. Mercer barely had time to throw himself and the girl to the ground before the alien staff slammed into the stone, shattering it on impact. The force sent them both rolling. Emma screamed again. Mercer twisted, shielding her with his body. He reached for his sidearm, but Zarath was faster, raising his weapon for a killing blow. Then his dragons turned. Not on Mercer. On him. The warlord's eyes widened in shock as his own creatures snarled, confused, enraged. Mercer glanced past him and saw Tate standing on a rock, holding up a hacked alien control module. Signals down, you scaly bastard, Tate called. Guess your pets don't like you much. Zarath barely had time to snarl before the first dragon lunged. The team didn't wait to see the rest. Mercer lifted Emma into his arms and ran. The comms crackled with static as Mercer sprinted down the jagged slope, Emma clutched tightly in his arms. The ground trembled beneath him as Zarath's enraged roar split the air, followed by the deafening clash of dragon against master. Fire and fury erupted behind him, the alien warlord battling against the very beasts he had once commanded. Mercer didn't look back. There was no time. Extraction point, how far? He barked into his earpiece, dodging a crumbling outcrop. 2 clicks west. Tate's voice came back, strained but clear. But we got problems. Define problems. They're scrambling reinforcements. More hostiles inbound from the canyon. And our ride's not gonna land in a war zone. Mercer gritted his teeth. Then we clear the damn zone. Gunfire erupted ahead as the rest of the team laid down suppressing fire, carving a path through the shifting battlefield. The air reeked of sulfur and burnt ozone, heat waves distorting the landscape. Cross was perched atop a boulder, his rifle cracking off precise shots, each one finding an alien skull. Ox was a walking turret, his heavy gun roaring as he cut through the advancing enemy ranks. Briggs was already setting charges along the path, preparing to collapse the ridge behind them. Mercer skidded to a halt near the team's makeshift cover, setting Emma down behind a slab of charred stone. The girl's wide eyes darted between the chaos, her small body trembling. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. She nodded, but barely. "Scared?" "Good," he said. "Means you're paying attention. Stay down, stay quiet. And no matter what happens, don't run off." "Got it." Another nod, this one more determined. Mercer turned back to his team. "Briggs, tell me you've got a plan." The demolitions expert grinned, slapping the last charge into place. "Oh, I got a plan. We collapse the ridge, funnel them into a kill box, and turn this canyon into a graveyard." "Do it." Briggs hit the detonator. The world exploded. The mountainside fractured, sending a tidal wave of molten rock and shattered stone cascading down into the canyon. Alien soldiers were caught mid-charge, their war cries turning to screams as the avalanche consumed them. The ridge collapsed in a chain reaction, funneling the survivors into the center of the battlefield, right where Mercer wanted them. "Now," he shouted. The team opened fire. Cross picked off stragglers before they could regroup. Ox's cannon cut through the bottleneck like a scythe through wheat. Tate, working from behind cover, sent a surge of hacked signals into the enemy's comms, scrambling their coordination. The Zythar faltered, their once organized assault turning into a chaotic mess. Then, from the smoke, something massive moved. A dragon. Not one of Zaratha's controlled beasts. This one was different. Scars crisscrossed its obsidian scales, its horns jagged and worn. It had been a prisoner once, a slave to the warlord's control, but now, with the signal broken, it was free. And it was angry. The beast roared, wings unfurling as it swept into the fray. The Zythar didn't stand a chance. The dragon's claws tore through the alien ranks, its fire scorching their formations. Mercer's team held their ground, watching as the battlefield turned against their enemies. "Mercer, this is Bravo 1. The pilot's voice crackled through the comms. "LZ is hot but clearing. You got 2 minutes before we dust off." "Copy that," Mercer replied. He turned to his men. "We're moving. Get to the extraction point now." They didn't need to be told twice. With Emma secured in his arms, Mercer led the charge toward the clearing where the dropship was descending through the smoke. The dragon, still carving a path of destruction, let out another earth-shaking roar before turning its gaze toward them. For a moment, Mercer thought it would attack. But then, the dragon inclined its massive head, its burning eyes locking onto Emma. The girl, to everyone's shock, lifted a trembling hand and placed it against the creature's snout. The battlefield fell silent. Then, with a final snort, the dragon pulled back, spread its wings, and vanished into the smoke. "Mercer!" Briggs shouted. "We gotta go." Snapping back to reality, Mercer hoisted Emma up and sprinted for the drop ship. The team piled in just as the engines roared to life, lifting them from the hellscape below. As they ascended, Mercer looked back one last time. Zarath was gone. The battlefield was in ruins. And somewhere, in the shifting smoke, a freed dragon watched them disappear into the sky. The dropship's engines howled as Mercer clawed its way down the jagged slope, turbulent upper atmosphere. Clutched tightly in his arms. Inside the cabin, the ground trembled beneath him against the violent shaking. Enraged, the metallic groans of the hull, a constant reminder deafening clash of dragons against master. The battle below had ended. Fire and fury erupted behind him. The war was far from over. The alien warlord adjusted his grip on Emma, beasts he had once commanded. Quietly against his chest. Mercer didn't look back. Her tiny hand gripping his vest. Extraction point. She hadn't spoken since the dragon barked into his earpiece. Since whatever had happened between them, crumbling out. Her breathing was steady. 2 clicks west, but her eyes remained distant, came back, locked onto something clear. Only she could see. "We got problems." Tate slid into the seat across from them. They're scrambling a hand to his earpiece. "More hostiles are still bound from the canyon, but I'm picking up chatter. Our rides is not going to land in a full zone. But there's something else, gritted his teeth. Something big moving in orbit. Then we clear the dam zone. Reinforcements. Gunfire erupted ahead as the rest reloading his sidearm out of having fire. More like a cleanup crew through the shifting battlefield. They can't afford to lose sulfur and burnt ozone. Heat waves distorting the landscape. The whole planet to cover their tracks. Perched atop a boulder. Ox scowled, his rifle tightening his grip on the cannon, strapped across his chest, finding an alien skull. "So we just fought our way out of hell. A walking turret, and now there's heavy gun roaring as he cut through the advancing enemy ranks. Back. Rifle was already setting charges along the path. We need to hit them first, preparing to collapse the ridge behind they wipe the evidence." Mercer skidded to a halt near the team's makeshift cover. "What's our fuel status?" Setting Emma down behind enough to get to the nearest moon base. The girl's wide eyes came darted between the chaos. "But if we try anything fancy, trembling, we'll be running on fumes," he asked. "Fancy's the only way we survive this." She nodded, turned to Tate. "Barely. How fast can you hack into their codes?" he said. "We need access means you're paying attention. Their orbital fleet. Stay down." Tate hesitated. "Stay quiet. Depends on how much pain you want me to be in. Don't run off." "All of it." "Got it." Mercer said flatly. This one more determined. Through his nose. Mercer turned back, started working. His fingers danced across his datapad. The demolition's expert glow of incoming data, the last charge into place in his earpiece as he pushed deeper into the enemy systems. Collapsed the ridge, bypassing layers of alien encryption, and turned this canyon into a graveyard. Flagship coordinates. Briggs hit the detonator. If we can get a signal past their jamming, the mountain can overload their core. sending a
Turn
tidal
that
wave
ship
into a
molten
miniature
rock
sun.
and shattered stone.
Briggs grinned,
Cascading down
sounds like a
into
plan.
the canyon.
Sounds like a
Alien
suicide
soldiers were
mission.
caught mid-charge.
Ox corrected.
Their war
Cross
cries
smirked.
turning to screams.
Then it's a good
as the
thing we
avalanche
specialize in
consumed them.
those. The ridge
Mercer
collapsed
shifted
in a
Emma
chain
slightly,
reaction,
keeping his
funneling
voice
the
calm.
survivors into
Can you
the
do
center
it,
of the
Tate?
battlefield. Tate's fingers
Right where
never
Mercer
stopped
wanted
moving.
them.
Give me
Now
a
he
clear
shouted.
shot at their relay.
The team opened
and
fire.
I can light Emma
Cross
from the
picked off
inside
stragglers
out.
before they
Pilot
could
changed
regroup.
course. Ox's
Mercer
cannon
ordered,
cut through the bottleneck
"Get us within
like a
range of
scythe
that
for
relay."
Lee. Tate,
Roger that.
working from behind
The pilot
cover,
responded,
sent a surge of
banking
hacked
the
signals
dropship
into
sharply.
the enemy's comms.
The sudden
Scrambling
maneuver
their
sent a ripple of
coordination.
turbulence
The
through the
Zythar
cabin.
faltered.
Briggs
Their once
secured the
organized
last
assault
of the
turning into a
explosive packs
chaotic
to his
mess.
vest.
Then
We
from
make
the
it through
smoke,
this.
something massive
Drinks
moved.
are on me.
A dragon.
You can't afford
Not
my
one of
tab.
Zaratha's
Cross
controlled
muttered,
beasts,
locking
this
in
one
a
was
fresh
different.
magazine.
Scars
The ship
crisscrossed
jolted
its
violently
obsidian
as enemy
scales.
fighters closed
its
in.
horns jagged
Their
and
plasma
worn.
bolts
It had been
screaming
a prisoner
past the
once,
hull.
a
The
slave
pilot
to the
weaved
warlord's
through the
control.
chaos. But
But
now
their pursuers
with
were
the signal
relentless.
broken, it was
Shields
free,
won't hold much
and it
longer.
was angry. The pilot
The beast
yelled.
roared.
Mercer
Wings
turned to Emma.
unfurling as it
"You
swept
still with
into
me,
the fray.
kid?"
The
She
Zythar
nodded,
didn't
small
stand a
fingers
chance.
tightening around
The
his
dragon's
vest.
claws tore
Good,
through the alien
because
ranks.
I need you to be brave
fire
one more
scorching
time.
their formations.
Her eyes met his.
Mercer's team
And for
held
the
their
first
ground
time since the
watching
dragon,
as the
she
battlefield turned
"I can
against
hear
their
them."
enemies. Mercer
Mercer,
frowned.
this is Bravo 1.
Hear who? The pilot's
Her
voice was
crackled
quiet
through the comms.
The ship's
LZ
the
is
ones
hot
chasing
but
us.
clearing.
You
The
got
team
2 minutes
exchanged
before we
glances.
dust off.
Tate's
Copy
hands
that.
paused over his
Mercer
console.
replied.
He turned to his
kiddo.
men. Emma's
We're
brow
moving.
furrowed.
Get to the
Her
extraction
gaze
point
distant.
now.
They don't
They
want to
didn't
be
need
here.
to be told
They're
twice.
scared. With Emma
Just like the
secured in
dragon's
his
were.
arms,
Mercer
led
led
the
the
charge
charge on the
toward
back
the clearing
of his neck
where
rise.
the dropship
Can
was
you talk to
descending
them?
through the smoke.
He asked
The
carefully.
dragon,
Emma
still
hesitated,
carving a
then
path of
nodded.
destruction.
Tate grabbed
Let out
Mercer's
another
arm.
earth-shaking
If
roar
she can disrupt
before
their
turning
systems
its
like
gaze
she did
toward
with the
them.
dragons.
For a moment,
We just got
Mercer
ourselves
thought it
an
would
ace in the
attack.
hole.
But then,
Cross
the
finished.
dragon inclined
The ship
its
rocked
massive
again.
head, alarms
Its
wailing.
burning eyes locking
Emma,
onto Emma.
Mercer
The
said.
girl, steady
To
but
everyone's
urgent,
shock,
whatever you
lifted
did down
a trembling
there,
hand.
do it
and
now.
placed it against the
She
creature's
closed her
snout.
eyes.
The
At
battlefield
first,
fell silent.
nothing changed.
Then, the enemy
With a final
fighters
snort,
still bore down
the
on
dragon
them.
pulled back,
Plasma fire
spread its
lighting up
wings,
the void,
and vanished
But then,
into the
one
smoke.
by one,
Mercer,
they peeled away.
Briggs shouted.
Their formation
We gotta
broke.
go.
Pilots
Snapping
abandoning
back
their
to
pursuit,
reality,
as if
Mercer
some
hoisted
invisible
Emma up
force had turned
and
them
sprinted
against
for
their
the
own
drop ship.
orders. The
Team
team
screen
piled, and
flickered.
just as the
I don't
engines
believe
roared,
it to
their
life.
command structure is
Lifting
failing.
them from the
The
hellscape
relays
below.
exposed as they ascended.
Mercer snapped back
Mercer
into
looked
action.
back one last
Take
time.
a shot.
Zarath
Tate
was
punched
gone.
in the final sequence.
The battlefield was in
The
ruins.
enemy flagship,
And
still
somewhere,
looming in the upper
shifting
atmosphere,
smoke, suddenly
a free
erupted
dragon
and
watched them
cascade of
disappear
fire
into the sky.
Its core overloaded, consuming the vessel from the inside out. The explosion was blinding, a miniature star blooming in orbit. The remaining enemy forces scattered, leaderless. The battle was over. As the ship steadied, the pilot exhaled. Holy hell! We're clear. Silence filled the cabin, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. Briggs chuckled, shaking his head. Kid just won us a war. Ox crossed his arms. That's going to be one hell of a debrief. Mercer looked down at Emma, still cradled against his chest. She blinked up at him, exhausted but unharmed. How'd you do that? He asked softly. She shrugged. I just listened. Mercer nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. Remind me never to underestimate you again. Cross leaned back with a sigh. So, about those drinks. Briggs grinned. You're still not getting out of paying. Laughter rippled through the cabin as they finally set course for home.